The inspiring journey of a young activist named Ayo, who resides in the lush landscapes of the far western part of Nigeria. Driven by a deep passion for environmental conservation, Ayo faces numerous challenges and setbacks, but learns that every small action contributes to a larger movement. The story unfolds the emotional and transformative experiences that shape Ayo's path toward meaningful change, echoing the wisdom of the saying, "Two footsteps do not make a path." The narrative culminates in a podcast format, sharing valuable lessons learned along the way in the far western region of Nigeria, where brilliant rays of a bright sky caressed the land, holds the ancient stories of a young activist named Ayo. Ayo was just like all other youth, but always saw things very differently within his community and beyond. He was a dreamer, a believer in the power of change, and a fierce protector of the environment. His village, Ejibu Ode, was surrounded by lush greenery, vibrant wildlife, and the sacred river Ogun, which was the lifeblood of the community. However, Ayo noticed the creeping shadows of pollution and deforestation threatening the beauty of his homeland. From a young age, Ayo had been captivated by the stories his grandmother, Mama Tayo, told him about the land. She spoke of the days when the air was pure and the rivers sparkled like diamonds. "Ayo," she would say, "the earth is our mother. We must care for her, or we will lose her." These words resonated deeply within Ayo, igniting a fire in his heart. He wanted to be a trailblazer, to carve a path for others to follow in the pursuit of environmental conservation. One fateful afternoon, as Ayo sat by the banks of the river Ogun, he watched as plastic bottles and debris floated aimlessly in the water. His heart sank. "This cannot be the future of my village," he thought. Determined to make a difference, Ayo decided to organize a cleanup event. He envisioned a day when the villagers would come together, united in their love for the land, to restore the river to its former glory. With excitement bubbling in his chest, Ayo rushed home to share his idea with his friends Kemi and Tondi. "We can do this! We can clean up the river and raise awareness about pollution," he exclaimed. However, the response was not what he had hoped for. Kemi shrugged. "But Ayo, it's just a small river. What difference will it make?" Tondi added. "People are busy with their own lives. They won't care about a cleanup." Ayo felt a wave of disappointment wash over him. The weight of their skepticism pressed heavily on his shoulders. Yet he remembered Mama Tayo's words, "Two footsteps do not make a path." He realized that even if he was the only one willing to take the first step, he had to try. With renewed determination, Ayo set a date for the cleanup and began spreading the word. As the day approached, Ayo faced numerous challenges. The villagers were skeptical, and many dismissed his efforts as a waste of time. "Why should we clean the river when the government should be doing it?" they would say. Ayo felt the sting of their words, but he refused to give up. He spent hours talking to people, sharing the importance of a clean environment and how it affected their health and livelihood. On the day of the cleanup, Ayo arrived at the river with a few bags and gloves, his heart pounding with anticipation. To his surprise, Kemi and Tondi showed up, albeit reluctantly. "We're here, but we don't think this will change anything," Kemi said, crossing her arms. Ayo smiled, grateful for their presence. "Every little bit counts," he replied. "Let's just start." As they began picking up trash, Ayo felt a sense of purpose wash over him. With each piece of litter they collected, he envisioned the river flowing freely, the fish swimming joyfully, and the villagers enjoying the beauty of nature. Slowly, more villagers began to notice their efforts. Curiosity piqued. Some stopped to watch, while others joined in, inspired by Ayo's unwavering spirit. By the end of the day, the river sparkled like it hadn't in years. Ayo's heart swelled with pride as he looked at the clean banks and the smiles on his friends' faces. "See, we made a difference," he exclaimed. Kemi and Tundi exchanged glances, their skepticism beginning to fade. They realized that Ayo's small action had sparked something bigger, a sense of community and responsibility. Encouraged by their success, Ayo decided to take his activism a step further. He organized educational workshops in the village, inviting local experts to speak about environmental conservation. He reached out to schools, encouraging students to participate in projects that promoted sustainability. Ayo's passion was contagious, and soon more young people joined his cause. However, the journey was not without its setbacks. One day, Ayo received news that a large corporation planned to build a factory near the river, threatening the delicate ecosystem. Panic surged through him. "We can't let this happen," he thought. He gathered his friends and organized a protest, rallying the villagers to stand against the corporation's plans. On the day of the protest, Ayo stood at the forefront, holding a sign that read, "Protect our river, protect our future." The crowd was small, but their voices were loud. They chanted, "Save the Ogun! Save our home!" Ayo felt a surge of hope as he looked around at the faces of his friends and neighbors, united in their fight for the environment. Despite their efforts, the corporation pushed forward with their plans. Ayo felt defeated, but Mama Tayo's words echoed in his mind. Two footsteps do not make a path. He realized that even if they lost this battle, they had ignited a movement. The villagers were now aware of the importance of their environment, and they were willing to fight for it. In the months that followed, Ayo continued to advocate for environmental conservation. He collaborated with local NGOs, organized tree planting campaigns, and educated the youth about the impact of climate change. His efforts began to attract attention beyond Ijebu-Ode, and soon, he was invited to speak at conferences and workshops across Nigeria. Through his journey, Ayo learned valuable lessons about resilience, community, and the power of small actions. He understood that change does not happen overnight. It is a gradual process that requires patience and perseverance. Each cleanup, each workshop, and each protest was a step toward a brighter future. As Ayo stood by the river Ogun one evening, watching the sun set over the horizon, he felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He had become a trailblazer, paving the way for others to follow. He realized that the path to meaningful change was not always easy, but it was worth every struggle. In a podcast format, Ayo decided to share his journey and the lessons he had learned with others. He titled the podcast, "The Path of the Trailblazer," and invited guests to discuss environmental issues, share their stories, and inspire listeners to take action. Podcast episode, "The Path of the Trailblazer." Welcome to The Path of the Trailblazer. Today, I want to share my journey as a young activist in Ijebu-Ode, Nigeria, and the lessons I've learned along the way. I remember when you first organized that cleanup event. I was skeptical, but seeing the impact it had on our community changed my perspective. It's amazing how one small action can lead to a ripple effect. I learned that even if we face challenges, we must keep pushing forward. Guest Tundi. And it's important to involve the community. When we all come together for a common cause, we can achieve so much more. Ayod, absolutely. The support of our friends and neighbors made all the difference. It's about building a movement, one step at a time. Kimmy. And we must remember that setbacks are part of the journey. When the corporation tried to build the factory, it felt like a huge defeat, but it only strengthened our resolve. Tundi. And let's not forget the importance of education. By sharing knowledge about environmental conservation, we empower others to take action. Ayo. That's right. It's about creating awareness and encouraging everyone to be stewards of the environment. Kimmy. So to all our listeners, remember, no action is too small. Every step you take contributes to a larger movement. Together, we can make a difference. Ayo. Thank you for joining us on this episode of The Path of the Trailblazer. Let's continue to inspire each other and protect our planet. Until next time, as Ayo's podcast gained popularity, he received messages from young activists across Nigeria, sharing their own stories and initiatives. He realized that he was not alone in his quest for change. There were many trailblazers out there, each carving their own path toward a sustainable future. In the years that followed, Ayo's efforts bore fruit. The River Ogun flourished, and the community became more engaged in environmental conservation. Schools incorporated sustainability into their curricula, and the village became a model for other communities in Nigeria. Ayo's journey was a testament to the power of passion, perseverance, and the belief that every small action counts. He had learned that while 2 footsteps do not make a path, each step taken with purpose and determination could lead to a journey of meaningful change. As he looked out over the river, now teeming with life, Ayo smiled, knowing that he had played a part in protecting the earth for future generations. The path of the Trailblazer was not just his own. It was a path shared by many, each contributing to a brighter, greener future.